Welcome back to another episode of Real Results with Coach Joe. I'm your host, Coach Joe Villegas. This is the program where we help you to improve your health, increase your wealth, and live a more fulfilling life. And with me today, I've got my friend Erin Hoffman. Erin is a financial advisor with Certified Financial Services. Erin, so pumped you're here. Thank you for joining.
Thanks so much for having me, Joe. It's great to be here today.
It's my pleasure. So I want to get right into it. I gave it away that you're in the financial realm, but we have some pretty interesting stuff in store today. I think the viewers are going to, probably find very helpful, considering it's a different angle to finances than we're used to hearing. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. But I kind of first want to hear, Erin, because I want to know, how did you get into finances? How did that become your profession?
Yeah, great question. Not a lot of people wake up one day and say, I want to be a financial advisor.
Yeah, I haven't yet, to be honest. I haven't.
Maybe tomorrow.
All right, we'll see.
Growing up, my dad's a CPA, so that's all we heard at the dinner table, conversations around money and savings and investing. And when I was 8 years old, I realized not everybody knew what a Roth was, right? You don't have a Roth? You don't know what a Roth is?
Right.
Point being, as I started going to school, I started working, I realized there was a huge lack of financial education out there for men and women alike. We're not talking about how to elect, employee benefits or select a mortgage or what's the best saving strategy for us.
Right.
So I really wanted to come into the industry and be a resource for people and focus on that education component, because with anything in life, whether it's a medical decision, a financial decision, the more educated we are on strategies, the more comfortable and empowered we feel knowing where we are and where we want to get to.
Yeah, 100%. And it's funny because my friends and I talk about this all the time. We're like, hot cross buns was great, Pythagorean theorem, awesome, but no one teaches you how to do your taxes or how to budget in school or anything like that. And so I know when you and I had connected previously, something that really drew me to your approach to finances and just money in general was that education perspective of hey, let's make sure folks understand why we're performing these strategies or making these decisions and why they're in their best interest, not just telling them, here's how you do it, now go do it. You know what I mean? So I thought that was really invaluable. So something that you and I spoke about previously and I think is crucial and is not talked about enough beyond the basic finance stuff that we talked about is not only our own relationship to money, but our relationship to finances as it relates to our relationships, with a partner. So that's something I know that you've got a lot of knowledge about. I think would be really great for the viewers to check out with us today. So let's kind of pull the top off this thing and start going through it. So when you work with folks, maybe it's with a couple directly or individuals, how do you begin to unpack not only their relationship to finances, but how they can then approach it productively with their partner?
Absolutely, Joe. And I love this question. I love talking about this because it's difficult to talk freely and confidently about money and financial decisions, right? It can be uncomfortable because we all grew up differently around money, right? Someone might have grown up with nothing and someone might have come from much more better means, but how do we now come together with our partners or our family and talk openly and freely about this? And money is a very volatile topic because it matters. Every financial decision we've made up until this point in our lives and many goals that we have for the future surround themselves around money and our cash flow and impacts how we interact in our relationships. A lot of turmoil in relationships are around financial decisions, right? So where I come in is to try to give some tools and tips on how to communicate on these financial topics and what we can do today to strengthen our financial situations, right? I really want to get people from being concerned to confident. And it's a big source of stress, right? What I see most couples and partners disagreeing about are about their lifestyle, perhaps personality differences, perhaps salary differences, and letting expectations get the best of us.
Gotcha. So, and if I'm not mistaken, I think finances actually are the cause of majority of divorces. Is that accurate?
Yeah, they're usually the leading cause, the
That's
number one cause.
wild. So luckily we have you to shed some light on this today, and hopefully,
Yeah.
if we can help couples kind of get things settled down. So, so where do you begin with them? So let's say a couple comes to you and they're not on the same page, or maybe they're newly together. Like, how do you begin to like put this whole thing going?
Absolutely. And I would say it's really split, Joe. I think some couples are pretty in tune and they're on the same page, but this is the first time they're sitting down together and talking at length about their finances. So
Right.
first thing that I want to talk about with them is their goals, short-term, midterm, long-term goals. And I think that's a good way to ease into it,
Okay.
right? I'll say, where do you see yourselves personally, professionally in the next 3 years? Right? Can't get too heated over goals.
Hopefully not. Yeah. Right.
Alignment with, are you going to go live in Italy? Are we going to go save for a new house? Or
Right.
are we going to have kids? What does that look like?
Right.
So short term, what are personal professional goals? Are we at least on similar pages with that?
Yep.
Right. Another thing that I want to do first, right off the bat, is I do some data capture. Right. I want to know some basic, high level overview information about this couple. What do they have in their names? Where is it sitting on the balance sheet?
Right.
And kind of a good third party in the middle here to facilitate these discussions. But I think a big question that is really important to ask your partner is about debt coming into any relationship.
Yes. Right.
Student loan debt, credit card debt, who are co-signers? Are you a co-signer on an account you may or may not know about or remember about?
Right.
And how do you envision keeping your money managed together? Will
Yep.
you have separate accounts? Will you have joint accounts? These are some really good basic talking points to have with your partner.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times I like to ask them, Joe, we've talked about this before, what your money personality is.
Yep.
It's kind of a fun little quiz to it's a little icebreaker.
For sure.
So are you a carpe diem, a money guru, or a penny pincher?
Yep.
Right? Do you like to spend more than what you have? Are you somewhere in the middle? Or do you save immensely everything and you've always got a surplus? So that's kind of a good little icebreaker I like to do with couples, and something you can do also, right?
Yep.
To say, hey, how do you feel about this? Right? Are we on the same? And that's okay if you have different personalities, but at least
Sure.
to know how each other feels about making financial decisions.
Definitely. So what are some other like basic questions? Let's say there's someone's watching this right now and they go, you know what, this is a good thing. I should go talk to my partner about this tonight. What are some other like real, let's say gentle icebreaker type questions they could be asking to begin to uncover some of this information and maybe get to know their partner on that level? Because it is tough to talk about. It's tough when you're talking to like your tax preparer about your own finances, let alone doing it with the person you love the most. So are there any other like little questions you have up your sleeve that folks could use maybe like today to help them kind of broach the conversation?
Yes. So I talk about you can set a money date.
Okay.
That's very exciting.
Yeah. Right.
Just something to kind of map out, hey, where's our daily dollar spent? And
Okay.
I always encourage people to start with a budget sheet. It's
Yep.
easy, just knowing what are our numbers, where's everything going, right? Or how much Starbucks do we buy every week? Right? We're mindful of online shopping.
Yeah.
Are we going out for groceries, or how often are we Uber eating?
Right.
If we eat out twice a week, maybe we eat out once a week, right? What are little changes that we can be making? I think it's also important to write down your financial goals.
Yes.
Right? Say, hey, let's talk about our financial goals. Make it a game, right? I'm going to come up with 3, you come up with 3. Let's see if we have the same goals.
Definitely.
Right? Start somewhere like that. Then maybe you do a budget sheet. Another big thing too, Joe, that I see with couples, and I encourage them, is to check their beneficiaries on accounts.
For sure.
Bank accounts, on mortgages, on credit cards, our retirement accounts. Because this is something also, we get so caught up in the day-to-day, but we want to make sure that our partner, if that's who's in our minds, we want to get those accounts.
Right.
Well, is there an ex-spouse, a deceased person on these accounts? That's important to look at together as well.
100%. So I love that, kind of like sort of easing into it a little bit. A money date's kind of a fun way to think about it. So maybe, you might do your last DoorDash for a little while, sit down, enjoy your meal, and start talking through the numbers and the finances, which is great. I know in my relationship with my wife, I'm the numbers person for sure. She doesn't really like numbers a whole lot, so she'll let me do the spreadsheeting, but we do want to talk about, hey, what are all these Amazon boxes showing up to the house? What's going on here? Kind of go through that sort of stuff. So that's, yeah, right. that stuff's great, which is fantastic. So just for my curiosity, I'd love to get your opinion too, because I think it can be a little tough for folks to begin to like combine finances. I've heard all sorts of different things, and not that I'm jumping into my friend's business here, but I know for us, like we join accounts, and I know friends of ours who just don't. They keep everything separate. Do you think there's a better practice for people to be doing? Like, hey, just put it all in one pot and work out of that. Or, hey, you've got your own system, I've got my own system, we'll pay the bills together. Like, what do you find seems to work the best for these couples?
It's a great question, Joe. I get asked this often as well. And it is really different for every couple. But what I would say, and I say this to every couple, regardless of what they choose, is transparency.
Yep.
Right? Just knowing what's in your name, who's managing what account.
Yeah.
Because that's okay, right? For couples to have separate accounts, separate banking accounts, separate investments accounts.
Yep.
Right? Might have different goals and different timelines. One might be a business owner and have business accounts, and one might not. But the transparency of, if I think you're paying the mortgage this month and I was supposed to pay it last month, then we don't know whose account it's coming out of. That's a problem.
Yeah, that's scary.
Right? So having that transparency of knowing who's in charge of what, and sitting down and talking about that, right? Maybe you're in charge of utilities and I've got the mortgage coming out of our joint account, and our emergency fund is in my name, and our high yield savings accounts is in your name, right?
Definitely.
So it's okay for couples to have different accounts, but I think that transparency and being organized, of knowing where these accounts sit in our financial house, are so important. And sometimes it's hard to have those conversations, right? It doesn't always have to be equal ownership and accounts and names, but
right.
Just again, that transparency is so important.
Yeah, I think that's invaluable. And Erin, I love where this is going. We do have to take a quick break, so we're gonna come right back to this. So if you are tuned in, don't go anywhere. We'll come back in just a short break after our sponsors.
What makes a Wawa Club? Is it the crispy bacon on the turkey BLT? The endless layers of flavor of the buffalo chicken salad? Or is it a secret handshake? Nah, at Wawa, there's a club for everyone. Find yours today.
We ride for those who died. The Police Unity Tour and RVN Television is bringing to you a show called On Your Honor, Straight Talk. And I'm your host, Patrick Monturi. I am a retired police chief from Florham Park, New Jersey, and I am also retired from the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C. I am currently, for the last 27 years, the CEO and founder of the Police Unity Tour. And this show will bring to you straight talk about law enforcement, the actions and heroism that is provided to you, the citizens of the United States, as well as their actions in falling in the line of duty, as we could see some of the stories that surround that. Again, please watch us on RVN Television and be safe, take care.
At Jersey Mike's, they slice your order fresh right in front of you. And let me tell you, watching that can send a rush of emotions through a person. Excitement, impatience, baby-like wonder, indecisive, anticipatory chewing, nervous pacing, happy claps, and finally, jealousy, because that's this guy's sub. I should order one. Good idea. Sliced right in front of you. It's a Jersey Mike's thing. A sub above.
Welcome back to Real Results. With me today, I've got Erin Hoffman, who is a financial advisor with Certified Financial Services, and we have been talking about setting up your financial house with your partner. So we're covering not only financial wellness today, but also our connections, right? Everybody has the need for connection, and if you can marry those two pieces together and do it well, you are built for success when it comes to your relationship, at least I would say. So Erin, let's get right back into it. We had talked about kind of the first step for couples is sort of setting up this like a budget sheet, or just basically getting all the numbers out there. Let's just get this thing exposed. Let's be transparent, get on the same sheet of music, and then we can go from there. So let's say, folks watching, they've set up their budget sheet, they know where the money's going. Maybe they're only doing one kind of fund in or out a week. They're not doing it every night. They got their Starbucks under control. Amazon's, kind of at bay for a little while. What's next? How do we continue to set up the financial house?
Bingo, right? Brings us to our financial house. A lot of times I say, once we get our kitchen junk drawers organized, if you're like me, you've got 2 or 3, it's okay.
Right.
Once we get organized, then we got to start thinking about, well, what are worst threats first to our financial house?
Okay.
Let's get organized. Let's see where everything's sitting, cash flow wise and asset wise, and start to put together a working agenda together.
Okay.
And I like to say co-creating, right? It's
That's
one
a good
thing
way to
for
put it.
an advisor to sit here and tell you what to do, but you're still left saying, well, why and how does this work, right? But with co-creating a strategy and together with your partner, you feel more empowered and you're all on the same page. So I'll start with what I call a protection review, right? And this is going through all of our insurances, right? Well, I think your auto insurance is my name. No, it's in your name. And whose name's on what, right? And what are the protection amounts we have? When was the last time we looked at our legal documents?
Right.
Right. So I'm kind of there to help coordinate all these pieces and make sure they're working in our best interest. Right?
Yeah, it sounds
When
like
was
a
the
lot,
last time-
but I feel like when you have somebody to help you, it goes a lot smoother, right? Like just a couple on their own could probably hack through this in like a Saturday afternoon if they really wanted to. But why not get a professional in your corner who knows what they're doing beyond just the
Right.
average Joe, you know what I'm saying? So that's
and people can, but I think, and I've heard from clients say this is, hey, you're kind of keeping me accountable for this stuff, right? Or else we wait a couple months, oh, it's June and I never got this account opened, or I was supposed to go get the will updated and, 6 months later. So I'm kind of, again, a good third party for just keeping your goals on track.
Yes.
And making sure we're moving in the right direction and preventing that financial failure along the way.
100%.
So-
And we don't want to have financial and failure in the same sentence if we can help it, right? So
Yeah.
we've
Yeah.
got this base, we got the budget sheet, we've got sort of the emergency stuff handled, right? The paperwork, what do we do in the event of X, Y, or Z? So where do we go from here? I think a lot of us want to focus on the fun stuff, what are our goals, like we talked about earlier.
Right.
How can people kind of start to at least set aside funds? What's sort of your best strategies for making those dreams become a reality?
Yep, great question. So once we go through that protection review, now the fun stuff is usually the wealth building, right? The savings, the investments. And the first thing I do with anyone, Joe, is actually a risk tolerance questionnaire. And this is really important with couples because, and what a risk tolerance questionnaire tells us is how we individually feel about the markets, right? From a risk perspective. And a lot of times couples may or may not be on the same page, but one might be really aggressive, one might be very conservative, one might be somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
And this is really important when we're looking at what accounts are currently in your name and or how you feel, right? We said money is a very volatile topic.
Right.
Are your accounts set up how you really feel about the markets, or are future accounts will set up for both couples, right? Are we setting them up in the right way? So first we'll go through that, and then based on what they're currently saving, we'll say, hey, do we have enough allocated for those short-term goals? Maybe we're buying a new car, or maybe we're going to take that dream vacation we talked about in the next 2 years, right? And do we think our 401k is the best place to save for our vacation in the next 2 years? Probably not.
No.
Right?
Hope not. Hope they're not saying that.
So, helping to understand, right, tax efficiency, liquidity. Well, how easily can I access my dollars for these short-term, mid-term, long-term goals?
Right.
And how much should I be allocating to each bucket? I think that's where sometimes couples and individuals alike can get stuck of how much to put where. And that's where I can really come in and help advocate and be a resource for people making those decisions.
No doubt. So I think there's definitely in the financial realm for sure a lot of vocab, right? Like liquidity and this and that. So when you say the term buckets, I get that one. That makes sense to me. So for the average person, typical person, what sort of buckets should they have set up? Obviously, probably like an emergency fund, retirement, maybe like funsies, whatever they got. What do you typically recommend they should have set up for that?
Yeah, there are a couple of main buckets I usually talk about. The one being our, savings, checkings, liquid bucket. Liquid meaning I can have, cash flow in hand really easily.
Yeah.
I don't have to pay a penalty or fee. It's out of the market.
Right.
That's a great bucket for our very short-term, midterm goals, right? The next few months I need this earmarked, or emergency fund or rainy day fund.
Right.
That's a good bucket for that.
Yep.
Right? Then we've got our traditional investment accounts. These might be brokerage accounts. So dollars that are still in the market, right? They're getting some exposure to growth. But again, they're not sitting in a retirement vehicle. So I'm not going to pay penalties or fees to access those funds.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yep.
So doing a little bit better than our checkings accounts, but they're not for super long-term goals.
Yep.
And then our final bucket, we've got our retirement accounts. So maybe our 401ks or 403bs, our traditional IRAs, right? And those are for our long-term, retirement's usually a longer term goal.
Right.
Because we cannot touch those accounts before 59 and a half.
Right.
And a lot of times I see couples putting a lot of their savings into their retirement buckets, which is great, but we're not saving into those two other more liquid buckets, like our traditional investment account, or perhaps a high yield savings account, right? That we can access. So finding balance, I say balance often, right, between our rate of savings and cash flow is so important.
No doubt. I mean, that's what life's all about, right? Is balance. So when we say, allocating to these different buckets, are there, your percentage of how much you're putting in, the amounts you're putting in, I imagine is based on your risk tolerance, right? Like, so if you're maybe a little more conservative, you want to stash it away, save it, invest it, that's fine. Or maybe you're looking to put it more in short term because you've got some opportunities coming up that you want to, rock and roll with. That's totally fine. I have a question I'm interested about. So when you, especially in the dynamic of a couple, two people, you might have one person who, is really into finances and they're very educated about it, or at least they think they are, and they know some stuff. And you have the other person who doesn't, but because of that, one feels like they've got a higher risk tolerance, they're a little more confident, they sort of know what they're doing with where they're putting the money, and the other one's maybe more conservative, and they're like, hey, we shouldn't be taking so much risk, this and that. Do you kind of sit there to help get them on the same page, or is it really something that they need to work out themselves? Like, are there some tricks that you have there? Because I'm sure there are couples out there who might butt heads in terms of what the goals really are and what the strategy is really going to be, if that makes sense.
Very often, Joe, it's a great question. And usually most couples are on different pages, right? One person's usually running more of the finances of the other, right? And it's really important, that's where that education comes in, right? Before I can start saying strategies and we're going to do this and that, this person, the other person, I want to make sure understands what these words mean and what these strategies mean and how it's going to affect them. So that's where that education comes in, right? Talking about these different strategies, how it affects them, and doing that risk tolerance. And I wouldn't say the goal is to get them both to the same risk tolerance. It's okay for each partner to have a different allocation, right, to their assets. Your 401k might be set up differently than your partner's, right? That's okay, but understanding where each of you fall. But perhaps in a joint account that you have together, that's where I'm making sure you're both comfortable with how those accounts are set up, right? And making sure we're reviewing that, hey, here's how the market's doing. Are you still comfortable with how this is set up for you? And knowing that we can always make changes to these accounts is important. Gotcha.
Yeah, I think that's sometimes a pill that people are swallowing, but they really don't have to. It's like, hey, look, we can make these changes later. It's not set in stone, forever. And these conversations with your financial advisor should be happening on a regular cadence. Like, they should be happening regularly so that you can tweak your approach and continue to stay on the same page to the best of your ability. So, Erin, I think, and I'm just going to propose this to you here on the show, I think you and I should put together like a little cheat sheet guide. We can throw it up on resultswithjoe.com for folks to download and check out. just to kind of get aware of, hey, here's some of the terminology you're going to run into, here's some of the typical strategies, and what I really would love to include are some of those questions, those icebreaker questions for their money date that they can have with their partner coming up. So Erin, I want to thank you for coming on the show today. I know we're wrapping up, it goes so fast, but where can folks find you if they want to learn more and really kind of tune into your approach? I love how educational it is.
Sure. Thank you again, Joe, so much for having me. So I'm on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in-Erin-Hoffman. You can find me on LinkedIn. I also have a website, cfsllc.com/Erin Hoffman. And I have a Facebook business page as well that I will put in the comments and share with you. Thank you, Joe, so much for having me today. It's been great.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and I know the viewers are going to get a ton of value out of it. So thank you for coming on, Erin. And for those of you watching at home, make sure you check out resultswithjoe.com just to get some extra downloads and free content from our previous episodes. And be sure to tune in for your next episode of Real Results.